Good morning and welcome to today's NCPDP webinar, NCPDP Task Group Leader Training Program, presented by NCPDP University. For Q&A purposes, you can ask a question at any time during the webinar today by typing in the question pane on your GoToWebinar toolbar. All questions will be addressed at the conclusion of the webinar as time permits. After the webinar, you will receive an email with a PDF copy of the slides presented today, and a recording will be available on NCPDP's YouTube tomorrow. Our speakers today will be Mary A. Perez, Medicare Part D Senior Systems Analyst Enrollment for Magellan RX Management, and Ashley H. Maples, Senior Product Manager, Digital Provider Solutions for Express Scripts. I will now turn today's presentation over to Ashley.
Good morning, everybody. So as Wendy said, my name is Ashley Maples and I'm with Express Scripts. I've been a member of NCPDP for about 10 years, and I've been co-leading NCPDP University since about 2014. Today, I'm accompanied by a longtime NCPDP member and NCPDP U contributor, Mary Perez, who has graciously agreed to volunteer to help us out today with this webinar, especially since she's a pretty smart girl when it comes to all things NCPDP related. So looking forward to talking to you guys today. When we're going through the deck, we'll give a little bit of background before we dig into the meat of the training guide. So we'll talk a little bit about NCPDP University and why this training guide was created. Then we'll dig into the training guide, as I said, and then we'll kind of top things off with a Q&A, as well as just some high-level benefits of being a leader at NCPDP. Wendy, if you want to go to the next slide. So NCPDP University is a subcommittee underneath NCPDP's Member and Leadership Development Committee. If you attended last week's webinar on the different committees that NCPDP has, you'll know that MLDC, or those of you who may not know, MLDC is a committee whose focus is to make sure that members underneath the council really get the most out of their membership. Whether you're new or if you're a seasoned member of NCPDP, we really want to make sure that you're getting the most bang for your buck when it comes to your experiences and the things that are offered and available for you. NCPDP University, essentially, we kind of have two different things. We build and maintain the NCPDP University curriculum, which is available for all NCPDP members through the website, through the member portal of the website. We have a whole bunch of different curriculums out there that you can go through at your own pace, and it pretty much spells out NCPDP from A to Z. So everything from being a first-time member to people who are looking to be on the board of trustees and other types of leadership opportunities, as well as standardization processes and the difference between task groups and work groups and all of that. So I'd encourage you all, if you have a chance, to go out and have a look at NCPDP University. On top of the curriculum, we also create and maintain and do other types of educational materials as requested by the council, including what we're talking about today, which is the task group leader training. The NCPDP Board of Trustees came to MLDC and requested that we revamp the current training, which is, so we took the training that is available prior to this. It was about a one-page document with some FAQs around leading a task group, and we really developed it out with all of the input from the university members to create a really comprehensive guide, including best practices and advice from current leaders of task groups. What should you do when you lead a call and all of that, all the way down to the DERF process. This is a brand new thing that the council has created. to show how to fill out a DERF and, you know, what is the process once a DERF is submitted. So we thought that would be really good to include in this manual. On top of that, we have a brand new section that we've just added to the end of the document around the industry engagement policy. Basically, the council came out with a policy for engaging other standards bodies and other organizations like ONC or HHS. And we've inserted that policy into this training guide. So it's something that you do from time to time when you lead a task group. And maybe I'll stop talking there and I'll turn the time over to Mary to go through the task group guide contents.
Good morning, everyone. This is Mary Perez, and as Ashley has said, I've been a member with NCPDP. I'm going on 10 years now, and I enjoy the work we do here at NCPDP, and to be part of, to be a task group leader is a great opportunity to start leadership opportunities within NCPDP. And I currently co-lead 2 task groups within 3 different work groups. So there's definitely opportunity out there to become a leader. So I encourage those who are taking the training, if you're not already a task group leader, to please take those opportunities when presented. So with the task group guide contents, one quote we wanted to make sure folks understood was that the work achieved in task groups is one of the most significant ways NCPDP drives industry change, interoperability, and innovation. So I've always said the task group does all the work during the quarter, and then at work group every quarter we get to report all the work that we've done. And so our current guide sections that we have include task group leader roles and responsibilities, quarterly updates, which are what we also call them recaps. Those are the information or documents that we provide to the staff so that we can report at quarterly work groups the work we've done within the task group. Task group participant responsibilities helps you understand what the members of your task group are responsible for, as well as how you facilitate that relationship. And then, of course, the standards development and DERF process. Next slide, please. So included in the task group leader roles and responsibility, we want to take control of your calls. So with that, you want to determine the length and recurrence dates with the staff liaison, set realistic expectations within the group, keep meetings on track, prioritize tasks, create structure for discussion. So a lot of times with our members, we have to get them involved, help them understand the conversation, what our scope is, and then ask them for their input and help them help us as an industry solve for any type of business case that the reason for the task group has been created in the first place. Also be a communicator. Make sure you attend all calls or make arrangements when you can't. This is why I encourage, if possible, to have co-leads when you lead a task group. They're great partners. They're also be able to take the call when you can't, and then business goes on as usual, and you're not feeling like because you wasn't able to lead that call that was a missed opportunity for folks to get together. Work with your staff liaison to get the word out, so communication through NCPDP Now when needed, or emails to the task group. The liaisons are very well versed in what types of communications needed when. Also deliver a quarterly update during work group sessions. So we're getting ready to go to work group next week. So all of us task group leaders last week had to turn in all our recaps from our task groups stating what we did, any questions we had, the business cases we reviewed, anything outstanding, any decisions we've made, items like that, so that when we go to work group and we present our recaps, for those who aren't able to attend our task groups, they can clearly see the work we're doing and ask any needed questions or give us input. And if we need to, we also reach out to other task groups. For example, we recently had for CMS to comment back on Chapter 14 for COB, and we had to involve 3 3 to 4 different task groups to get those comments reviewed and the chapter reviewed and the comments documented and sent out. So we do involve other task groups when needed. We do cross each other and we do complement each other. Next slide, sorry. So cohesion is the key. We want to build common purpose between our members, encourage participation and involvement, show appreciation for contributions, and monitor DERFs and developments in other task groups. So we not only take care of what's within our group scope, but we want to make sure that there is work that's being done within other task groups that may impact us or that we have a voice in, or we want to just monitor to make sure that if it does impact something that your own task group is doing, that we're making sure that we keep on task. And as far as building common purpose between the members, normally when the task group is created, you've already got quite a few people that are interested in the task group. But once you meet, you can start getting the word out or ask them to get word out, and always remind folks that as a task group member, you don't have to be an NCPDP member. So we always encourage folks to invite other members to the task group that are co-workers or folks of the industry that could have great input into what the work we're doing. So other coming hurdles to build consensus. So you will not always have 100% agreement. We need to find a middle ground. We also need to ensure members feel they are heard and understood. And we want to keep discussions on track. Also, we need to watch our demeanor and attitude. Sometimes it is hard to take off our day-to-day hat when we're wearing a task group leader hat, but we need to make sure that we, of all people, keep the calm of the group. And then we try different approaches when the group is stuck. So if you're on a particular topic or have a solution proposed, and it's one way or the other for most folks, then you have to start thinking outside the box. And if you can't right then on the call, you want to encourage folks to take home homework and bring back more information to complement their information that they're providing. So with that said, you always by doing that or making sure that everyone is heard and has the opportunity to understand the discussion and even bring back others to the conversation or bring back more evidence of what they feel is important to add to the conversation. And then also, if you're still having trouble with the consensus, you can look to NCPDP staff to help you as well. With that said, our staff liaisons are there to help coordinate. They manage documentation out on the NCPDP Collaborative website, where we house all our documents. They do call logistics, making sure our meetings are set up, as well as our agendas are sent out and reminders. They watch for violations to antitrust policy. They keep track of our important dates, and they know the ins and outs of NCPDP standards and processes. And for us task group leaders, that's invaluable information because we don't know it all. We have passion, but we just may not have all that knowledge. So the NCPDP staff liaisons, we love them. They are, we couldn't do our job without them. And with that said, I'll turn it over to Ashley.
Mary, definitely will second that. The staff liaisons are incredible if you've ever had a chance to work with any of them. So now that we've kind of laid the groundwork for, you know, the responsibilities of a task group leader, let's start talking a little bit about leading task group calls. And I want to preface this section by saying we didn't just come up with all of this, you know, on our own. We actually took some of these as best practices from a few highly successful task groups within the organization. And we use those leaders and what those leaders have done throughout the years to build this section of the guide. So this is what we've, you know, known to actually work. So the first thing is really when you're introducing the call and you're kicking it off, whether it's a brand new task group or one that has been maybe open for, several months or a year or so, which can happen. You want to introduce each call as if it were the first. So welcome everybody. Make sure that you introduce yourself and the staff liaison, and then briefly review the task group scope, and name. That's always helpful in case there is somebody who is brand new to the call, maybe attending for the first time, or somebody who has taken a break, for whatever reason and is coming back to start attending the task group again. Always go through the housekeeping items. So you want to remind everybody that the task groups follow the NCPDP antitrust policy. You don't actually have to read the policy during a task group call, but you do want to remind members that you still follow it. You use the mute, remind people to use the mute button and don't put the phone on hold. And then ask each person when they speak for the first time to make sure that they tell the group their name and the organization they represent. And this really goes a long way in helping to, build a sense of camaraderie within the group. You start knowing names and faces and voices, and it builds a lot of cohesion. You also want to identify any special guests if they have been invited or if they're attending the call for a first time. And then it also helps to summarize previous meeting notes that drove you to the current topic that you're talking about today, or on the call. So if you are picking up from a call, from your last call, it might be good to summarize for the group where you're at, so you don't have to do a lot of backtracking of previous conversations. Next slide, please. Okay, so in facilitating a productive discussion, and this goes along with what Mary had mentioned in the last couple of slides, you want to involve as many people as possible. And I've definitely been on calls where, me representing the PBM industry, task group leaders have said, what do the PBMs on the call think? Which is something that you're totally okay to do. You can ask for input and opinion. Sometimes people just need that extra nudge to say something. Frequently check for understanding. Encourage good communication behavior. So, remind people sometimes that they need to be polite. You never know. But some calls are kind of crazy like that. You want to step in if something's being said over and over again, because that may be an indicator that somebody isn't understanding something. You want to level set. And then at the end of each call, summarize the accomplishments, and then as well as the next steps for the next call or things to do in between calls. A really great way to engage the group is asking open-ended questions. So it's something instead of a yes or a no. And then remember to stay positive and ask for volunteers when you need it. You're not expected to do all of the homework. You can if you want, or if you feel like it's something that, that you feel is appropriate for the leader to do that, by all means do that. But we're all, human. We all have jobs outside of NCPDP. So, I don't want somebody to not volunteer for a task group because they think they're going to have to do all the work. When you have conflict, so we've kind of talked about this a little bit, and I don't want to make it sound like every task group call is a fight. It definitely is not like that. There are, majority of the time, everybody is in agreement and you move forward without issue. But in the case that there is some conflict, you want to make sure that you intervene and kind of be that mediator when things start to get heated. You can always table the issue for another call and ask people to go back and do research, or see if there's maybe a subject matter expert who is not on the call that may be able to come in and provide some additional input. And then taking action. So at the end of each call, like I said before, review homework assignments and make an agenda for the next meeting. So you know exactly what you're going into in case, you only meet once a month or once every 2 weeks. You already have it documented and you're able to keep fresh on all the data. All right, Mary, you're up.
Thank you. So the next topic is our quarterly work group updates. So task group leaders are responsible for creation and presentation of your group's work during each work group session. The key is responsibility and gives you a lot of visibility to showcase your group's accomplishment. So these updates include our discussions and decisions by the work group requiring work group approval. Sometimes those are FAQs, so frequently asked questions to the group that we want to get published out into the frequently asked questions document. Sometimes it is updates to the implementation guide or items such as that. Or sometimes it's a white paper to discuss best practices. Other items that we also present are DERFs. So during the quarter, if we've determined there's a need for a standard, either a new ECL value, a new field, a new segment, things such as that needs to be, that we're requesting, have a business case for and requesting NCPDP to approve. Those are the types of DERF presentations that we make as task group leaders. Sometimes our if we're not the ones that wrote the DERF, that it is under our task group, we tend to do the presentation unless we need the subject matter expert and they're available to make the presentation. But as a task group leader, you should be well-versed in the, any documentation that you're presenting at work group. And then this is also to ask the question to the larger work group membership, whereas the task group is smaller in focus and membership and could, as well as we've stated before, have members that are participating that are not actual NCPDP members. So now we're going to a larger group of the membership and asking them to look at our work and either bring their input or approve of what we've done. Next slide. So the importance of preparation. So you want to send update document to the staff liaison by the due date. So anything that's, we get a due date not only for the DERF presentations for each work group, but a due date for our actual recap document back to the liaison so they have time to put that into the work group materials for folks to download in preparation for the work group. So whenever possible, prior to work group though, we want to review our recaps with our task group. Typically our recaps do involve everything that we have worked on and they're in the agenda and meeting notes of our task group, but it's good to review that with our task group membership to make sure that we haven't forgotten something that is important to be noted. Consider creating a PowerPoint presentation. There are some larger task groups that, depending on what they're presenting, may need to create a PowerPoint presentation. Take time to explain things. So part of that recap, when you're standing up there in front of all those folks, is to give them information, but it's also to receive information. So when you're explaining your recap, you want to give them as much detail as possible if you're asking for feedback or approval. Practice what you'll say. So sometimes I'll meet with my co-leads prior to work group and just determine who's going to stand up. Are we going to stand up together? Are we going to take turns presenting what we're doing? So just prepare with, if you're the only task group leader, then work with someone or practice on your own, but sometimes that helps before you get up there in front of the group. And then also consider bringing a copy to hold. Some people bring their tablets to read. Some look at the screen while they're there. I like paper just to hold. So whatever works for you for best for preparing for the presentation. And then for presenting, ask the group for questions and feedback before you end your recap. Don't rush. Take time to let that information sink in that you're presenting, and then listen to the group for opportunities to make things better and encourage the work group to participate in future meetings. So for those who have lots of questions and comments to the work that we're doing in our task group, those are the definite ones that we want to encourage to come during the quarter and participate in our task group because they obviously have important things to say. So the next slide, and Ashley will explain the DERF process.
Thank you. And going back to what Mary was saying on the last slide, for me, public speaking and being in front of people does not come easy. There's a lot of anxiety associated with it because I'm kind of an introvert. But the more that I did it, and my first task group recap, I had to present a DERF and I hadn't adequately prepared, and it was miserable. It was a few years ago, and I literally felt like I was standing up there for 2 hours getting yelled at. But it was because I hadn't adequately prepared, so I couldn't educate the group well enough to, let them know what this DERF was about. So by the time that the next task group quarter came around and I had to re-review my pended DERF, it became a lot easier, and it was a lot better because I had prepared, and it was, it really, really paved the way for me to feel better at being in front of a crowd. So I really can't emphasize enough the need for preparation, and the more that you do it, the more repetitive it becomes, the easier it becomes as well. You also get more familiar with the work group and the people that you're talking to. So it's nice. I would definitely, if you have stage fright as one of your things that you want to improve, task group leadership is definitely the way to get over it. Okay, so now let's talk about the DERF process. This is a brand new section, brand new to NCPDP. We've had DERFs and we've had some guidelines in the past for filling out a DERF, but really we wanted to take a couple pages of the manual and deep dive into how to fill out a DERF. What is needed and why do we have DERFs? So DERF stands for Data Element Request Form, and it's the change form that NCPDP uses to change any type of published standard or supporting documentation. Typically, task groups are created to address a business need, out of the work group session. So as a result, DERFs are often, a part of what you do as a task group. To solve those business scenarios or those needs in the task for which you were created. If the task group ever does submit the DERF, it is the task group leader's responsibility to manage the DERF development process. And by the task group, the process by the task group, and monitor the timelines to ensure expectations are met. So it's kind of a big responsibility. Next slide, please. So, thanks. So the first thing you want to do, you'll prepare the DERF with your task group. So this isn't something that you'll do, alone. This is something the task group does as a collective action. Make sure that all the task group work is complete. So you have all of your documentation. If you're submitting a change to an implementation guide, you have to make sure that you have it all written out and you have it documented the way that you want it to be if it were to be approved. You need to make sure you do your research. So the task group, and this is the task group, when I say you, it's the task group doing this. Evaluate all possible scenarios, happy path versus, unhappy path. And then create examples and outlines to ensure understanding. Going back to what Mary said, this may include creating a short PowerPoint presentation to simplify, something that may be more complex, just to make sure that the group has all who represent all levels of understanding, are all reached and they understand it in the way that they, that is applicable to them. So what your DERF should contain. When you're filling out the DERF, this is what you need to make sure that you check all the boxes when you're filling it out. You have a clear summary of the request. So this could include business cases, supporting the request for the change, any background information, leading up to and being the reason why this change is occurring. And then you want to correctly identify all impacted NCPDP standards and transactions. If you're creating a new field or a new data element, there's a section on the DERF where you fill out those fields, as well as marking which standards or which segments of which standards those new data types or fields would apply. You also want to ensure that field definitions are outlined when applicable, and include any supporting documentation, either from other white papers or segments from an implementation guide or other best practice documents, those types of things. And the reason we ask you to do this is there are times where once a DERF is adjudicated, it is housed on the NCPDP website, so folks can go and reference back to that if they ever need more information about a request. And it's so much easier when it's 5 or 6 years down the road and you're trying to compile a list of changes that you have to implement for your organization, to be able to go back and look at those DERFs and know exactly what was intended, and what the background is behind that DERF. It makes things a lot easier, for historical understanding. So then it comes to work group, and all DERFs are reviewed in work group sessions. So you are going to review your task. So like we said, you review the DERF with the task group before the submission, and then kind of take a temperature of how the task group is feeling about the DERF. Presumably everybody is in agreement and everybody's on board, but there may be one or two people who may not think, that that you'll have consensus. Definitely take that into consideration and plan for that, or maybe, figure out a way to tweak the DERF or whatnot. You want to make sure that when you take it in front of work group, that you may have the best results possible. And there are times maybe where the DERF can be reviewed by another task group. For example, I was leading a task group where we did some work for the script standard, and as a measure before work group, we took it to the at the time it was called the script implementation recommendations task group. So we took it there, the best practices task group, and we reviewed it in that setting as well to kind of get a climate on what people were thinking. Know the ins and outs of your DERF. We've said that. And then when you're presenting the DERF in front of work group, it's really good to be transparent about any discussions or points of contention that you had during the task group. So, folks in the room get a better gauge of the driving factors and the forces behind your DERF. After work group is over, the DERF is voted on. It's either approved, denied, or pended, and then you want to report those dispositions to the next task group and then take the appropriate next steps. If it's approved, the next step would be the ballot process. So you kind of have a waiting phase for that, and then depending on what happens in the ballot, you may have some action items. Or if it's pended, you may have additional work to complete. Or additional discussions to have, and then if it's denied, then you'll be able to report that back to your task group and make a plan. Next slide, please. Okay, Mary, I think that's you.
So, are you ready to be a leader? Thanks, Ashley. Leading a task group at NCPDP is a perfect first step to expanding your visibility and training for future leadership opportunities, both within NCPDP as well as within other areas of your professional life. I can state from personal experience that when I first came to NCPDP, I talked low, always had to talk up, and was very shy. And becoming a task group leader has expanded my fear of talking in front of, or has expelled my fear of talking in front of groups. I'm able to also lead better within my own organization and facilitate meetings better just from the experience of being a task group leader. So again, we encourage you to become a task group leader. Skills you can acquire, again, is speaking to and influencing large groups, mediating conversation and disagreements, and learning the ins and outs of NCPDP policy and bylaws. So we encourage folks to join as a task group leader and take those opportunities when you see them, as well as if you're a current task group leader, if you need information concerning how to be or what those important steps we discussed today, they will be available for you as a task group leader.
And to kind of add on to what Mary was saying, if you have any additional questions about how to become a task group leader, how that volunteer process works, or if you're interested in becoming a task group leader but you don't know how, there are a couple of resources, especially, I'm going to shameless plug for NCPDP University. We have a few courses out on NCPDP U that speak exactly to that. It's in the 100 series. If you want to go have a look, and then while you're out there, you can look at all the other courses. One thing I also want to point out is that the deck and the information that we've kind of summarized today is part of the actual manual. So this isn't the actual manual. The Task Group Leader Training Guide is available in a couple places out on NCPDPU's website. It's under the NCPDP Task Groups paragraph on ncpdp.org. So I think it's in the Get Involved section. And then we also have it in the Standards Development, Standards Information section out on the Collaborative, if you're interested in the full manual. And that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ashley and Mary. We will now start the Q&A portion of our webinar. Remember, you can ask a question by typing in the question pane on your GoToWebinar toolbar. Our first question was, where do I access the Task Group Leader Guide, which Ashley has just covered. Our second question today is, where are the DERFs housed on the NCPDP website? Where can they access them?
Okay, so if you are inside the member portal, you can go to, I believe it is the maintenance and control page. So if you scroll down to work group lookup and then click and search the maintenance and control, on the right hand of the screen in the sidebar, you will have the DERF and DISMO section. And that way you can go through, they have it kind of, they have all of the download for all of the DERFs for the current work group. So if you go there today, you'll see the ones for February. You'll also see DERFs resolution documents, and then they have all of the adjudicated DERFs broken out by year, and you can go back up to 3 years. If you need, I think, if you need DERFs, or, you know, in my experience, when I need DERFs, you know, further back than 3 years, then I usually just reach out to an NCPDP Staff Liaison, or I think it was, I can't remember the name, but, and I don't want to say it the wrong one, but you can reach out to NCPDP for those.
Let me see if I can go there. We've had another question. Could you guys share your screen as you show where things are located?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So can you see my screen now, Ashley?
I can, yes.
Okay, so we're on the member portal. Let's see. Should I go to MC? Can we go through it one more time? Let's see, where are the DERF housed? Member portal.
So if you go into work group,
different.
Oh, you're already. Yeah, I think you could just go into the work group lookup on your left-hand side and pull down the drop down to the MC, or maintenance and control. Yeah. There you go. And hit search. That'll take you to, yeah. And then on the right-hand side, you can see all the DERF information there.
Excellent. Thank you.
So on the right-hand side of the menu shows us, yes, so that shows us DERFs that have already been approved or been worked, adjudicated. And then in the middle, where you see the menu of maintenance and control, those are upcoming DERFs within the work group that's going to be coming in February.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. Our next question is the PowerPoint is going to be available for download or can be sent after the webinar? And the answer is yes, it will be sent a PDF of the slides, and the recording will be available on both the NCPDP webinar page in the bottom right and on the NCPDP YouTube. We do ask for 24 hours for the availability for the recording because we have to download it and get IT to get in to get it up there for us. But usually we can get it on YouTube within 3 hours after the webinar. Our next question today, ladies, is where can we access the NCPDP bylaws?
Ooh, these are good questions.
Yeah.
I believe the NCPDP bylaws are available.
Oh, sorry, Ashley.
Is it on the public side of the? Yeah. If you go to resources, I think, or you can search bylaws. Yeah.
I was just wondering if it came up in the search.
Even, yeah.
And there they can see the NCPDP University. Let's see, maybe under About Us. In the NC, let's look at this. There we go, NCPDP bylaws. There's at least one, a PDF on the website.
And what I've done is I just save a copy of the bylaws because they don't change very often, I don't think. I save it on my desktop so I can read it and reference it. It's a pretty long document, though.
Yeah. Okay, our next question. As it should be, for sure. What are the location requirements of a task group leader?
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Ashley.
I was going to say, every task groups, because they are held in between work group sessions, they are all virtual. So work group sessions are on site, where in order to, participate in work group, you have to be there physically. Task groups are the opposite. Everything is virtual. So you can sign up for task groups to attend a task group on NCPDP's collaborative website. That is where you'll get the meeting schedule of events, as well as the telephone information to dial in, and the webinar, the WebEx information as well, or the go-to meeting.
Okay, so at this time we have no further questions. On the screen you'll see our upcoming annual conference is right around the corner, so register today to save on early bird, which does end February 16th this year. Sponsorships and exhibitor spaces are going fast, so secure yours ASAP. You can check out our conference website, which is at the bottom of this slide, to kind of see updates on who our keynotes are going to be. And we also have full track session descriptions available with speaker bios online. Also, we wanted to share with everyone, we do have the new NCPDP certification program that started this year. It's definitely, well, Ashley, you are certified in our script version 10.6, right?
I am. Yes, I am.
Yeah. So on our website, we have a lot of information kind of describing, what the benefits are of certification, and we have a couple different delivery methods. You can take it next week at February work group meetings, or you can take it online anytime from anywhere. And we also have an in-person option at Criterion testing centers across the United States. Brian Gorlick can help you identify a testing center or help you sign up to take the online or the February work group. And his email is at the bottom of this slide. So with that, that concludes today's webinar, NCPDP Task Group Leader Training Program, presented by NCPDP University. Thank you, Mary and Ashley, for your time and expertise today, and thank you all for your participation. As I stated earlier, a PDF of the slides and a recording will be sent in the next 24 hours. Have a great day, and we hope to see you all at our annual conference in May.
Thank you.